What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of GameScript. We are running hot this season. Our picks are hitting in both showdowns and the main slate. And tonight we have our trickiest matchup to break down yet. We got the San Francisco 49ers versus the New York Jets. They're playing in San Francisco. We got a 43.5 point total with San Francisco as 4.5 point favorites in this one. And it's going to be our trickiest matchup to break down yet. There's a lot of injuries to sift through, but there is one guy that stands out that could be a potential low-owned captain for us, and I'm going to get into it right after this. What's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports. You're watching GameScript. Tonight's game is going to be the San Francisco 49ers versus the New York Jets. This is a team of matchup of two strong defenses facing off against each other with two teams that have some decent offensive weapons. Obviously, San Francisco is more potent on the offense than the Jets, but the Jets get back Aaron Rodgers tonight, and he's going to get a mulligan on Monday night openers. Last year, they ended up taking him out in I think the first 4 snaps or something like that. He tore his Achilles, and he was out for the season. So we never got to get that taste of Aaron Rodgers on the Jets, but tonight we get that opportunity. Jets have a much stronger offensive line this year than they did last year, so hopefully we'll see some protection for Rodgers, and we'll get him more than a game this season. So, or more than like a drive this season. So we'll see what happens there. San Francisco, we dealing with some injuries, particularly on the defensive side. Drake Greenlaw is out. Talona Hufanga looks like he's going to be doubtful for tonight. So that's impactful injuries right there. We're also missing Eric Armstead. He was traded in the offseason. Kalia Davis, Drake Jackson, and Drake Greenlaw, as I mentioned earlier, they're all going to be hurt tonight. So, and the biggest one is Christian McCaffrey. He was added as questionable to the injury report. So Christian McCaffrey is going to be a huge deal, and he's going to be a key cog for how we figure out how to build our lineups for tonight's game. I believe McCaffrey is going to play, but he's questionable. He was added as questionable to the injury report. So maybe his injury is more serious than the team has let on, or maybe they're just doing that, adding him as questionable to throw off the Jets a bit on how serious the injury is. But either way, it's going to probably have to be taken into consideration when we're building our lineups. Also with Trent Williams missed most of training camp with as a holdout. So he is coming in without the conditioning necessary to go, 4 quarters against one of the best defenses in the league. So that should have an impact against San Francisco. I think there's a lot of considerations between these all these injuries and, like holdouts and everything. Hassan Reddick on the Jets also he's still holding out. So he's going to miss this game. So that's a blow to the Jets on the defensive side. But I think when you take into account all the different things happening on both teams, I think the Jets have a minor edge there. And I think when you get the Jets, potent defense like the Jets, getting Aaron Rodgers back, and they have a lot of good weapons on the offense, and they give a little bit of an edge to them, that could be serious implications for the outcome of this game, where everyone's expecting San Francisco as 4.5 point favorites to win this game. We're looking at a 43.5 point total, as I mentioned, so it's a very low total game. But I do think that the Jets have potential to win this one. And last season, I was pretty good at calling the Jets wins. I called them to win against the Bills in week 1 last year. And I called for them to win against Philadelphia later on when nobody really thought that they could beat Philadelphia. So this is probably the third time I've ever called the Jets to win a game, given like how they've looked the last few years. But I do think that the Jets are live to win this one. So we need to take that into consideration also when we're building our lineups, or at least when I'm building my lineups. So as I mentioned last night, really strong performance yesterday in general. The main slate ended up coming in third in the slant. I only put in 3 lineups into that one. I ended up coming in second as a runner-up in a couple of the live final contests, which I also I entered about $100 total in lineups yesterday. Wasn't a like a ton of money or a ton of entries, but I ended up clearing about 7,000 in winnings yesterday. So it was a big day for me. And then at night, the showdown game, I won another 1,000 or so there. Same deal. Like, been running hot on these captain picks. Yesterday, Cooper Kupp and Jameson Williams were the big calls. So running strong. Make sure to hit that like button. Looking for 30 likes to put out a shorter video a little bit later on. Those likes really help with getting the word out on this show and helping me to grow this show. After giving all these big picks, it helps to grow this thing and keep it going. But also make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I put these shorter videos out a little bit later on in the day, closer to lock, but you're going to want to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the alert button, because there's no set schedule for when these things drop. So you're going to want to get the alerts when I drop my shorter videos, so we can keep everybody watching the show happy and winning. So hopefully a lot of you guys won last night and yesterday in general. I gave out Joe Mixon for the main slate, as well as Chris Godwin and Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels wasn't exactly sneaky or anything, but he was the recommended quarterback yesterday, and he ended up going off. So, if you tailed on that one, great job. You probably made a lot of money yesterday, like me. And let's keep it going with this showdown. So, looking at the Jets versus the 49ers here. Christian McCaffrey, the most expensive guy on the board. You're looking at him as a captain at 17.4. The injury consideration with Christian McCaffrey is one that's going to affect how we play. I don't really like McCaffrey necessarily as a captain, although his matchup isn't horrible against the Jets. Even though the Jets have been a shutdown defense, they have been susceptible to receiving backs. So they've been able to shut down, or not shut down, but they've been pretty good against the run in general. But the receptions that the backs are getting are, making it so that the Jets were giving up 24.9 DraftKings points a game last year. So that's 25 DraftKings points, puts them in the looks like about the 5th or 6th most DraftKings points allowed to running backs per game. So that's something that we want to take into consideration, especially with Christian McCaffrey's role in the passing game. But I do believe that the Jets are obviously going to be more conscious of that, and they're probably going to be taking a lot more precautions with Christian McCaffrey, putting a lot more focus on him. And I think that something like that should neutralize McCaffrey's upside a little bit and take him out of captain consideration for us, which is good, because we're going to need a lot of salary relief in this game. Good thing too with McCaffrey is he's projected for about 24-25% captain ownership. So if we're not using him in the captain, that's going to take out a large portion of the field that we're competing with. We're looking to compete with 20% of the field, not 80% of the field. So taking McCaffrey out of consideration for captain is going to help us out there. Breece Hall is not in the best matchup. San Francisco was really good against the run last year. They only allowed 18.5 DraftKings points a game to running backs. But Breece Hall, he's a stud. He has the similar upside as McCaffrey. Maybe not the best matchup, but his upside for his talent is still there. And Breece Hall could be a significant piece of the puzzle for tonight's game. Garrett Wilson has a better matchup than Breece Hall. Last year, if you remember, San Francisco was susceptible against wideouts for a large portion of the season, at least. And with Hufanga likely doubtful to out, that's going to help out Garrett Wilson even more, not having that extra safety back there, or starting safety back there. So Jets get the opportunity with Wilson and Rodgers connecting for the first time. Wilson really has never had a decent quarterback throwing to him, and yet he's putting up 1,000 yards last year. He won Rookie of the Year on the offensive side in his rookie year, so he's been solid for his young career, despite not having any competent quarterbacks throwing to him. So it's going to be a big deal for Garrett Wilson to get Aaron Rodgers throwing to him tonight. So it'll be a good glimpse into the upside of Garrett Wilson for the future. So Deebo Samuel. Deebo is probably my favorite play on the slate tonight. Right now, or at least at captain. Right now, he's projected under 10% owned captain. I'm seeing him at about 8%. Problem is, I think he's going to get a lot of steam throughout the day. So while at 10:30 Central Time is the time it is right now when I'm recording this, I really like Deebo Samuel as a captain option. It's really going to depend on where he falls with ownership projections as we get closer to lock. So that's why it's going to be important to subscribe to the channel, sign up for alerts so that you can get the alert on, whether or not Deebo's my favorite captain or what later on. Also, I'm at about 700 subscribers right now, so I want to get to 1,000 within, before week 2, let's say. So help me out, get me to 1,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, and let's just keep going with that. So Deebo Samuel, just in general, has the probably the better matchup on the San Francisco side. Obviously, with him being involved more in the run game, as well as the passing game. He gets the most targets on the team, period. And with Aiyuk playing, he's still, like the leader in targets on the team. Aiyuk, I think, is going to be getting the coverage of Sauce Gardner and, like the number 2 there in the Jets defense. So I do think that, he's going to be neutralized. Aiyuk is going to be neutralized over Deebo Samuel in this matchup. I think Deebo is going to be set up for a decent game. And the type of coverage that the Jets run too, he gets targeted more with cover 4. So look for Deebo Samuel to have a decent game tonight. And he's going to be in the player pool for sure, but he'll be in play for captain as well, and probably one of the better captain options tonight. Brock Purdy does not do very well against good defenses. He is efficient as hell when he's playing easier matchups, and he's a really good quarterback. But when you put him in these situations where he's playing, the top defenses versus Cleveland, he had like 8.7 DraftKings points. Versus Baltimore, he had 6.4 DraftKings points. If we can look at projecting him for under 10 DraftKings points, if we get him in a serious defensive matchup, we got to take into consideration too. Saleh used to be the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. So he's very familiar with Shanahan's scheme. He's very familiar with how to defend it. And, he could be a thorn in Shanahan's side tonight, knowing what Shanahan's thinking and how to maybe combat it. At the same time, obviously, Shanahan has that same knowledge of Saleh, but, I tend to lean towards the defense given Brock Purdy's performance against elite defenses without even facing the coordinator of like the head coach of a defense that is familiar with more familiar with the offensive scheme than anyone. So I look at that as a strike against Purdy, and for that I might project him down in that like 10 DraftKings point range, given how he performs against some of these defenses. Minnesota was a huge blitzing defense last year. He scored 14.78 DraftKings points against them. If we're looking at maybe some of these other defenses, yeah, that's that's about Kansas City. He had 15 points against Kansas City. Kansas City had a really good defense last year too. So, 10 point to 15 point. Maybe we give him 12 points to be conservative as a projection for Brock Purdy. So that would take Purdy out of play for me most likely. In general, I probably won't have a lot of exposure to Purdy. I much prefer Rodgers, even though he's coming off that Achilles tear. Rodgers has experience playing against the 49ers in the past. Like he's got probably the best weapons he's had in a while. Garrett Wilson, probably one of the best young talents that he's ever worked with. Given he kind of groomed guys like Devontae Adams and not to take away from those guys' talent, but he was a big piece of the puzzle for those guys developing into such good wide receivers throughout their careers. So Aaron Rodgers has the ability to elevate guys like Garrett Wilson and even Breece Hall to an extent in that passing game. So I think Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall are going to benefit huge from having a competent quarterback this season, just in general. But if we look at some of Rodgers' past performances against Shanahan's teams, he won 30-28 back in 2021. He won 34-17 back in 2020. 2019, he lost 8-37. 2018, I'm not sure if Shanahan was there at the time, but they won that game 33-30. As far as the playoffs that he's played against them, he lost 10-13 and he lost 37-20 against Shanahan. So I look at this as kind of a playoff atmosphere. First game of the season, we got a lot of storylines in this one, and like they're in prime time. So look for this to be like not such an easy game for either of these teams to play. And Rodgers, even with his veteran experience, he should probably struggle in this game, especially coming back off that Achilles tear. So Rodgers, I like him over Purdy, but like I'm not locking him in by any means. Brandon Aiyuk, I'm just not a fan of his matchup. And then he missed most of training camp holding out. He came back about like 10 days ago or something like that. And, in general, he's just a receiver that relies on efficiency. And I don't think that, the Jets are going to allow much efficiency in this game. So, Brandon Aiyuk gets down a knock, especially when he's going up against Sauce Gardner. I just do not like that matchup for Aiyuk at all. George Kittle has a better matchup. Kittle's a guy that we can leave in our player pool. The Jets were allowing 12.3 DraftKings points a game to tight ends last year. Kind of goes along with the receptions that they allow to running backs. Like the shorter dump offs are kind of what teams resort to when they play the Jets because they don't want to test them deep. So, don't be surprised to see George Kittle get, some work in this one. Although the issues with Purdy are still the same. Is Purdy going to be able to get him the ball when he's under pressure? And is Purdy going to be able to perform against this defense in general? But I kind of lean. I'm going to lean Deebo Samuel over George Kittle as far as the guy getting the most targets in this one. but Kittle is definitely in play as well. Mike Williams, I was surprised to see, he was going to be playing in this one. Mike Williams, he's going to be quote unquote on the Breece Hall schedule for when Breece Hall came back from his ACL tear. They worked him in slowly, but in the opening game of last season, he ended up scoring 20 points. Breece Hall did against the in the week 1 game against the Bills. So they used him a decent amount, but not as much as they used him when he got healthy. But Mike Williams, if he ends up being a end zone target, like he's a big body, like contested catch guy, he could get a decent amount of opportunity in this one. But, maybe he's not a guy that we're prioritizing, especially at 6,600 on DraftKings. So after that, we skip past these quarterbacks. We're going to the 49ers D. 49ers D, I do like their matchup, but I do think that I would lean more towards the Jets D at 3,200 than the 49ers D at 5,200. Rodgers is, like a guy much less likely to give up points to a defense than Brock Purdy would be against the Jets. So there is a $2,000 difference there as well. So I just don't like the 49ers price, although I don't hate their matchup, obviously, but I do think that the Jets offense will be more potent this year, and that's going to put the 49ers at a bit of a disadvantage. So probably not going to have a ton of exposure to the 49ers D, even though I think this is going to be a low-scoring game as well. As far as the kickers, I think they're both in play. I think their kickers are going to be used a lot in this one. So keep that in mind when you're building your lineups, especially with the total coming in at about 43.5 points. I would expect the kickers drives to stall out towards the end zone and, resorting to kickers kicking those points. And they're not going to be going for it on fourth in this matchup. They're going to be trying to get points wherever they can on both sides. Juwan Jennings just doesn't get enough work to be considered really in this one at 4K. But, you could sneak him into your player pool for sure because the guy is clutch. He's a clutch player. Maybe with Aiyuk being a little bit deconditioned, maybe we see Jennings get a little bit more usage. He was a stud in the Super Bowl. He's a good, solid player, but he just doesn't get the opportunity because the playing time just isn't there. He's not on the field a lot because they don't run a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. So that kind of leaves Jennings as the odd man out. So that is going to be a reason why I'm not super heavy on Jennings. If he was cheaper, he'd be a perfect guy for us to have. But we have, like a few cheaper options that I like better, honestly. So we'll take a look at those. Reminder again, hit that like button, give me the 30 so we can put out that shorter video later on. Subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get up to 1,000 subscribers. I'm at about 700 right now. So I'd like to get that, like in the next few weeks. I said like this week, but honestly, like let's get there in the next couple weeks. So Tyler Conklin is another guy that I like. Conklin, the San Francisco 49ers, they're good against tight ends. They're really good against tight ends. They gave up 11 DraftKings points a game to the tight end position, which was a middling stat last year. So Conklin isn't like a guy that we need to take out of our player pool, but he's got upside at 3,600. And Rodgers, might lean on these guys like Conklin and Alan Lazard because if Lazard is going to be the starting slot in this matchup, and Rodgers, if he gets under any sort of pressure, like he'll probably be dumping off the ball to Breece Hall, Conklin, and Lazard, guys like that. Lazard, he's got that obviously that connection with already from their time together at Green Bay, and like Rodgers even like forced Lazard onto the team when he joined them. So, like Lazard, look for him to get probably more usage than he got all of last season or in any game last season. And Lazard is sitting here at 2K on DraftKings. Let's look at let's look and see if we got a history here of Lazard against San Francisco. See if Rodgers has leaned to him in the past against this matchup. This is where you want to look at box scores, by the way, to kind of see histories against teams. This is a good tool to use. So we're going to look at him versus San Francisco. All right. So in the playoffs, we're looking at 1 target, 1 reception, 6 yards, no touchdowns. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 36 yards, no touchdowns. In regular season games in 2021, he had 1 target, 1 reception for 42 yards. And then in 2019, 2 targets, 1 reception for 7 yards. So Lazard has been largely out of play against the 49ers. Let's just out of curiosity, let's take a look at what Rodgers has leaned on when he's played this 49ers defense, which he has a history against because we've seen them play a bunch of times when Rodgers was on Green Bay. So if we're looking at, let's look at the most recent one. That was 2022 in the playoffs. They lost 10-13, but who was Rodgers targeting in this one? So receiving, we're seeing 10 targets to Aaron Jones. So, keep that in mind with Breece Hall. 11 targets against Davante Adams. So Davante Adams and Aaron Jones were who we leaned on. Our equivalents there would be Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, obviously. Against 2019 in the playoffs, Rodgers went with Davante Adams had 11 targets in that one as well. Aaron Jones had 5 targets. Jimmy Graham, the tight end, had 5 targets. Lazard had, his 4 targets. No one really performed, though, except for Adams and Jones. So 2021 regular season, let's see how he did there. That was a high-scoring game, 30-28. Green Bay didn't have a defense anywhere near what the Jets have, though. Aaron Rodgers targets 18 to Davante Adams for 132 yards. 4 to MVS. He ended up getting a touchdown, but you see, like he leans on his number one, and that's probably just a general thing as well. But not really any real patterns here other than that. In 2020, he faced them as well. Let's check that out. 34-17, they won that game. Let's see. Aaron Jones, 5 targets in that one. You also gave 5 targets to Tyler Ervin, who I believe was also a running back or a tight end. I believe he was a running back. So 10 targets to running backs in that one, 12 to Davante Adams, 4 to MVS again in that one. So gives you a little bit of a look at what we might be able to expect from Aaron Rodgers in tonight's game. Lazard, he's got familiarity with Lazard. Lazard's only 2K, and Lazard was named the starter over Gibson. Gibson, I think, is the better player, but he just does not have that political capital with Rodgers yet. So Gibson, I like him at 2,400. Maybe Lazard is a starter in name only, and he ends up getting swapped out for Gibson a lot. But we'll see what happens in the game. Also, it doesn't help Gibson that the OC is the former OC for Green Bay that Rodgers loves too, and he'll do anything to make Rodgers happy. So Jordan Mason is a guy that I'm interested in too in this lower range. He's at 3K. especially with Christian McCaffrey's questionable status. They might decide to use Jordan Mason a lot more. He's got like a 6 yards per carry average. So he plays very well. He's very explosive running back. And he'll get a lot of potential if he gets his opportunity in this one. And he's only at 3K. So let's say that, they want to be cautious with Christian McCaffrey. The last time we heard that, by the way, they ended up playing him full game. So, I mean, it's likely that McCaffrey gets a full workload. But in the chance that, he doesn't, we have Jordan Mason as a salary relief guy to add into our lineups. Let me try and get an idea of what his ownership is projected at. He's probably going to be a decent amount of ownership. You've seen him at about 14%. So keep that in mind with Jordan Mason. He's got a low, and that's 14% in the flex. So he's got a low ownership, and he could be a potential key to winning showdown slates, giving us a lower owned option. We could pair him with McCaffrey to help us justify not having McCaffrey in the captain. Maybe Jordan Mason is taking away some of that work, and it can't, it prevents Christian McCaffrey from racking up the points that are going to justify a captain position. Braylon Allen is the backup to Breece Hall. I don't expect him to get a lot of usage in this one. I think they're going to go all out to try to win, and I think Breece Hall is going to be a big part of that game plan. Corley, he was a hyped-up rookie, but he just didn't perform in the preseason. So, he probably delayed his opportunities at least for, like a few weeks. But he's at 1.6K, so it makes him interesting. Other than that, I'm really not seeing anyone else that I would be interested in, going lower here. Is this Terrace Marshall? That's interesting. San Francisco has Terrace Marshall on the team. He's on the practice squad, though. But Terrace Marshall, that's an interesting signing. He used to have a lot of upside potential with Carolina, but never really lived up to that expectation. So that's all I'm seeing right now. Pearsall, he would have been an option for us, but he ended up getting shot. So hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he's not out too long. Thoughts out to him. Like a hyped up rookie, has a lot of potential. So hopefully he gets better soon. Let's look at who that would impact the most. Is probably Juwan Jennings. So, Jennings not having Pearsall there as competition puts him in a better spot. So let's build this lineup. Let's get Deebo in there as the captain. Actually, let's build it. Let's build it out like with a chalkier build first. So let me go to the lineup optimizer here. I'm going to give you guys a build of what the optimizer is telling me is going to be chalk for this this game here. So give me a second here while I set that up. Going to do a build on that. All right, so I'm guessing that they're going to have McCaffrey. Yeah, they have McCaffrey as the captain. They got Lazard in that lineup. They got Purdy. They got Garrett Wilson. They got Breece Hall, and they got like a scrubbier guy in Jeremy Ruckert. So, I mean, that's not the type of lineup that I think is going to be able to win tonight, but that gives you an idea of what the optimizers are going to be plugging in for, people's lineups. They're going to be looking for, one of those scrubby guys. So maybe that's where we can get different a little bit. But if I'm building this same lineup, I'm going to build it differently for a chalky lineup. We're going to put McCaffrey in that captain. Let's see. What other studs did they have in there? They had Breece Hall in there. So let's get Breece Hall in there. And they had Purdy, but I think Rodgers is going to have a better game than Purdy. So if this was my chalkier build, I'd put Rodgers in there, and let's put Deebo in there because I like him a lot. That leaves us with 3,800. puts us in that scrubby range that I just don't like. And if we're playing with that much money, let's go down here. I mean, Ruckert. I mean, there's probably a reason why they had Ruckert. I'd take Corley over Ruckert though. Let's put Ruckert. Let's put Corley in there and see where that leaves us. That leaves us at 2,200, so we can get Lazard in there too. So that way at least you have Rodgers with Corley and Lazard and Breece Hall. So that gives you the veteran quarterback coming off injury starter pack. You give them a lot of guys to dump off to, and guys with upside like Breece Hall, and if Corley ended up being any good, like he would. If we got rid of Corley, if we did go with, let's say we did go with Ruckert, that would leave Gibson in there too. So if you went with Ruckert, you could have the opportunity to either get Gibson or Lazard in there. But you're playing with fire if you're putting Ruckert in your lineup. Let's try to build one a little bit differently. Let's clear this out. I mean, like this situation too. Hang on a sec before we clear this out. Let's put Kittle in there instead of Deebo. Let's see if that helps us out. Is all. Let's put Gibson in there. I think he's got more upside than Lazard, even though Lazard's the starter. That leaves us with 3,600. I mean, we can get Conklin in there. That feels a lot better because that way we got Rodgers with his running back, his slot receiver, and his tight end. So he's got all his short dump off guys in there with him. We also get the Jets D in there. Jets D would fit in that build as well. So we'd be able to get the Jets D in there. And that probably would be better because that way Rodgers is dumping off to Breece Hall and Gibson. And then we got the Jets D. So he's not paired with, like two pass catchers. So take that into consideration when you're building your lineups. I think that's a little bit better direction to go than the optimizer was telling me personally. But you guys can make your judgment calls there. Now, before we get into this one, reminder to hit the like button, get me to 30 likes so we can put out the shorter video later on, and make sure to hit subscribe. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. If you've been watching, you probably have hit subscribe because we've hit on every slate so far. Just like we've hit the key guys, the low-owned guys. We've hit all the captains. We had all the the key pieces with like Mixon under 10% yesterday. Ended up going off. I think it was the highest scoring running back on the slate. And we had him in our short video, like also in the, the video where I player pool video that I made where we built lineups in the main slate, the longer video. I had Mixon in pretty much all those lineups, but I also had him as one of my top 4 guys in my YouTube short that I put out. So that's why you want to subscribe and get the alerts for when these videos come out, especially these shorts when we get closer to lock, and I'm locking in my decision making there. All right, so let's put Deebo in as the captain. Let's get McCaffrey and let's get Hall in there. I'd love to get Wilson in there too. That leaves us with $2K per person. This is where it's going to be tricky to get all these guys in there. So we're going to have to go scrub diving here if we want to go this direction. Let's put Gibson in there. And then you're left with options like I wouldn't want to put another pass catcher on the Jets side. So I'd be looking for, a potential guy on the San Francisco side, maybe Juszczyk. I mean, this might be, if you're going to use Juszczyk, this is probably the week to use him with the uncertainty around Christian McCaffrey. If you wanted to go different, let's say that McCaffrey is going to be used less often. He's got an expensive salary. He's going to need a high performance to pay off that 11.6 salary. Although this is showdown, this is in the main slate. So you really don't need him to get a peak performance. You really just need him to be one of the higher scorers on the board. So, but let's say that they hold McCaffrey to, 15 DraftKings points. And let's say that, Rodgers scores 16 DraftKings points. So that, really puts Rodgers ahead of Christian McCaffrey. And let's say that all these three studs that we have in here, these four studs, they all score over 15 DraftKings points. They all outscore Christian McCaffrey. By fading McCaffrey, we're fading about 80% of the field in total ownership. So, we're be competing with 20% of the field versus 80% of the field, which is what we're looking to do in these things. Deebo Samuel, he could get more carries with McCaffrey hurt. Let's take out Gibson out of this. I don't think we need him as much. Let's get that Jets D in there, because that would also help us justify not having McCaffrey as the captain or in the lineup period. That leaves us with 3,400. Now, this is setting up as a little bit too much of an onslaught, but that leaves us with Jordan Mason at 3K. So if you want to build a story around why is Christian McCaffrey, why is 80% of the field wrong on Christian McCaffrey, this is how you do it, all right? You got Deebo in the captain. Deebo is getting a lot of those carries and those shorter yardage opportunities that, Christian McCaffrey might get, those dump offs and stuff like that. Deebo is getting all that work. So he is, PPR beast in this one. He's the captain. Rodgers, we prefer him over Purdy. Purdy, he does not do well in these defensive matchups, whereas Rodgers is a veteran. He's used to playing against difficult defenses, and he's used to playing against the 49ers. And he scored a lot of points against the 49ers. So Rodgers has more upside than Purdy in this one, I believe, even coming off that injury. Breece Hall, he has upside any game that he plays, but, maybe Rodgers is dumping the ball off to Breece Hall a lot. Garrett Wilson is the alpha in this, and we've seen it in the past. Rodgers likes to throw to the alpha against San Francisco's defense, and he likes to throw to his running backs. So we got the running back and we got the alpha. But knowing San Francisco's defense, that's why we don't have Rodgers necessarily in captain, because he's given these guys a lot of PPR points. Maybe they score a touchdown or something like that. But Deebo is getting a bunch of PPR points by himself as the main target in San Francisco. And the Jets defense is holding, Christian McCaffrey to a lower total game that he normally would get, especially with that injury that he's dealing with. That sets up Jordan Mason to get more work. So Jordan Mason being, the cheaper guy in this range that, we might consider. We also got, the slot receivers as an option for those, short yardage dump offs. If we want to stack Rodgers with two receivers, we have an option of putting Gibson in that final spot or Lazard. That would give us a 5-1 build with only Deebo Samuel being used on the San Francisco side. If you're looking to get different tonight, there's not many people that are going to have 5-1 builds in favor of the Jets playing in San Francisco. So it's probably not the best idea. But if Deebo Samuel ends up getting like 3 touchdowns tonight and, getting a bunch of receptions, I mean, like, this could tell a completely different story than it looks. It could tell a story that, like San Francisco is leading this game, 21 to 7 or something. And Breece Hall got a reception from Rodgers to get that 7. And then, guys like Garrett Wilson are racking up PPR points too, but not necessarily scoring. Jets defense is doing their job. And maybe this game ends up being, like 21 to 14 or something like that. And, Jordan Mason is brought in relief a lot to kind of spell Christian McCaffrey because they have a comfortable lead or something like that, with Deebo racking up all the work. Deebo could get, those 3 touchdowns could be, 3 rushing touchdowns for Deebo. It could be 2 rushing touchdowns and a regular touchdown. But maybe Aaron Rodgers throws 2 touchdowns. That would take Purdy out of the picture and justify that. So think that stuff through when you're building these lineups. If we wanted to go a little bit different there, maybe we're taking out the Jets D and we're putting in Zerline or Moody. Moody would be a better justification for not having Christian McCaffrey in there because they're kicking field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. That leaves us with 1,800. That puts us in that scrub range that I don't like. But if Moody ends up racking up a bunch of field goals, it makes more sense. Where is Zerline? Zerline is 400 cheaper. That puts us at 2,200. That way we got Lazard as an option. We don't quite get to Gibson, but Lazard is technically the starting slot receiver. So, that would set him up to get some targets tonight. You could also put Juszczyk in that one. But I don't like this direction as much as I like having that Jets D in there. I think from a storytelling perspective, it makes a lot of sense to have him in there instead. The Jets D in there instead. That helps us build that story around why Christian McCaffrey isn't getting the usage that everyone else is expecting out of him. And then Jordan Mason, that completes that storyline for us. So there we go on that. Let's do one more. Let's do one with let's see. Let's do one with Kittle because I like Kittle's price in this. Let's say Kittle is our captain instead. Let's get McCaffrey in there. Let's get Breece Hall in there, and let's try to get Wilson in there too. That leaves us with 3,600 per guy. If we wanted to, we could do that same thing where we're putting the Jets D in there again. Or what we could try to do, let's put the Jets D in there. And, that doesn't leave us quite where I'd want to be because I want to try to get one of those kickers in there. So maybe we're taking out, let's take out Wilson. Let's put in Deebo instead. Where does that get us? That gets us to 4,300. So it's going to be very tricky to build lineups on this slate. So keep that in mind. Garrett Wilson, let's put him in. That puts us at 4,700. So that at least gives us Zerline as an option, and we got Conklin as an option. So, there are plenty of ways to play around with this. That Deebo one that I built, where I'm telling the story of Christian McCaffrey out of the lineup, I think I like that one the best. But let's take McCaffrey out of this one. Let's kind of do that same Deebo build that we did, except we're doing it with Kittle instead. So let's get Rodgers in there. Let's get Breece in there. That leaves us with 6,700. So that leaves us with more options than if we use Deebo. We can have Mike Williams in there. Maybe Mike Williams gets, like a couple touchdowns or something. You got the 49ers D. You got the kickers. I like the kickers a lot in this one. Let's do a 2 kicker build with Deebo and the captain. So if we want to put Deebo and the captain here, let's put both those kickers in. Moody was drafted in like the 4th round or something last year. So Moody has a high upside. Breece Hall, let's get him in. Let's get Wilson in there. Leaves us with 6,400. So our options are, like the defenses and stuff like that. I mean, this is the perfect game for kickers and defenses. So I like the Jets in as well. Conklin would be an option. 49ers D would be an option if you want to go that route. You can always play around with it a little bit more, obviously, and see where your build takes you. Let's take out Wilson. Let's put in Kittle. That puts us at 8,800. You could get Aiyuk in there if you like him, or Williams. I wouldn't use Williams, so at 6,600, like with his limitations. But there are a bunch of options. The one I like the best, though, is the one where we're telling the story of, I think I had Deebo in that captain. The one we're telling the story of why we don't have Christian McCaffrey in there. Jet Steve was the other one I had in there. So, this is my favorite direction to go, but we'll see how I feel when we get closer to lock and I get a little bit more research under my belt. But that should give you guys a good indication. Subscribe to the channel. Get me to 1,000 subscribers. Need 30 likes to trigger that short video. So make sure you hit that like button and sign up for Underdog. They're giving you a ridiculous 50% deposit match up to $1,000. And, that's important because when you're looking at deposit bonuses these days, especially for, like DFS, if you like to play best ball, especially, Underdog is perfect. If you like drafting and doing snake drafts and stuff like that, Underdog is perfect because they have large prize pools. They're a stable company. They're going to be around a while, and they are very customer friendly. But you can also do pick'em games and stuff like that. If you watch the show this weekend, I did a pick'em contest where we're hoping for Christian McCaffrey to get under 115 total yards tonight. But we hit 3 legs of that 4-leg parlay so far. They gave us a bonus with Dak Prescott 0.5 total yards. But, we're 3 legs into that 4-leg parlay right now. And we just need Christian McCaffrey to get under 115 yards, total yards tonight. And if he does, then that's going to hit for us. So that'll be nice to see. But in general, I'm going to be giving out a lot more of those parlays throughout the season where the opportunities arise. So you're going to want to subscribe, or you're going to want to deposit, sign up for an Underdog account, deposit for that 50% deposit match up to $1,000 for new depositors using the promo code SEEK. You got to use that promo code SEEK, SEEK. It's right on the bottom of the screen on that side. You can see it right there. So thanks, guys. Make sure to subscribe and hit those alerts. I'll put out that shorter video once I hit 30 likes. Thanks, guys.